Welcome in, everybody. It is Monday, March 20th. Aaron Rodgers still technically on the Packers. We're waiting for that to break, but Brandin Cooks is on the Dallas Cowboys, and we'll talk about that. Foreman, he moves to a new team. He's with the Chicago Bears. What does that mean for Khalil Herbert? Welcome. I am Adam Azer with Jamey Eisenberg and Heath Cummings. Hope you guys had an excellent weekend. It definitely was not as good as my weekend, but I hope it was good nonetheless. Heath,
did you go to both games?
No, I just went to the Friday game. A tremendous sports experience. I'll tell you about it in a little bit if you'd like to hear about it. One of the coolest experiences that I've had at a sporting event.
Why did you not go to both?
Okay. All right. Well, you want to get into that now? Okay. Yes, I went to the NCAA tournament game on Friday.
Wow.
Yeah.
They taught you how to say tournament.
They wouldn't let me in without saying it right. It was Miami versus Drake. It was a pretty sloppy game, but, fun finish. Miami won. It was great. It's at Albany, which is 2 hours away from me. Everything just worked out perfectly. I got a great price on a ticket. I went by myself. I got a parking spot in a lot that was completely full right next to the stadium. It was actually connected to the stadium. They had one guy just left the parking lot, so I got in there. Everything was just perfect. They won the game, but the crowd, it was really amazing. I got to say, because it was just, for the most part, it was just basketball fans. It was, the way these work is there are 2 games for that session, and you could buy tickets to the entire session and go to every game, including the earlier games, whatever. But most of the people there were not Miami fans or Drake fans or Indiana fans or whoever Indiana played. They were just basketball fans. They were so into it, and it was a really, really cool experience. And it was packed. And the coolest part was at halftime. Halftime was the very end, almost the very end of the Purdue game, where they lost to Fairleigh Dickinson, if I said that right. And everybody was watching it. 20,000 people were watching it on the big screen and going crazy as FDU pulled off the upset. So that was really, really fun. I didn't go to the game on Sunday, Jamey, because it's 2 hours away. It was later. I would have had to probably stay overnight. I wasn't going to drive home at midnight. There would have been a lot more traffic because it was the last game, as opposed to there was no, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So it just didn't work out. And I had work today. So that's why I didn't go to that game.
Gotcha.
Yes. Anyway,
Are you going to Madison Square Garden in 4 days?
No, Miami's not there. So
South Florida's got another team coming to you.
Oh, FAU's there?
FAU will be.
Oh no, did we lose Heath?
He froze.
All right, he'll come back. Anyway, I hope everyone's doing great in your bracket challenge. I'm in 14th place in FFT, so let's go.
Nice.
Yeah. Let's talk football though, because we do have some headlines to get to here. And let me give you some rankings questions. So the news we're going to be covering mostly today is Cooks, Thielen, Foreman, and then a little bit on Gesicki, Gardner Minshew. Talk about that briefly. But Jamey, how would you rank these wide receivers as we'll wait to get Heath back here? Brandin Cooks, now with the Cowboys. Michael Pittman, maybe Gardner Minshew will be his quarterback for some of the year. Who knows? And Mike Evans with Baker Mayfield. Brandin Cooks, Michael Pittman, Mike Evans. Heath, I don't know if you heard that. Brandin Cooks, Michael Pittman, Mike Evans. Jamey, how do you rank them?
Evans, Pittman, Cooks for now.
Evans, Pittman, Cooks. Heath.
Pittman, Evans, Cook. I'm not sure that Baker Mayfield is even a good thing for Mike Evans. He might be, but he also might be the guy we saw for the first half of last year, which is the worst quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah, so let's talk about Brandin Cooks here, guys. And Jamey, you said off the air you're not even sure if you moved him in your rankings after he was traded to Dallas. What's your take on him going to the Cowboys for a 5th-round pick this year and a 6th-round pick next year?
Love the move for Dallas. I think it adds to their wide receiver core, and we'll see, just exactly what Brandin Cooks still has left and how much of last year was a byproduct of the Texans or how much of a byproduct was he's just, getting into his early 30s and it's, time to start slowing down. But he's clearly not going to be the number 1 receiver on this team. And Mike McCarthy says they want to run the ball more. There's still Michael Gallup for what that's worth, and I still think he's a capable player who they paid a lot of money to, who will get some targets. So I don't know if he's going to be the same type of fantasy option, but I do think he is a great value pick once again because he will fall in drafts. And so a guy that I would love to have as my 4th receiver, I would settle for him as my 3rd receiver. Again, I think when we talk about number 1, number 2, number 3 receivers, you have to expand the number more than just going by 12. So I think he is a very good number 3 receiver, but he's not ranked that way for me. So I think you just look at the situation in Dallas in the target crunch, and if they are going to be a more run-heavy team, it could be a little bit of a downgrade for his fantasy numbers.
Yeah, I think I've got him projected for 124, 125 targets, right around wide receiver 40 in the first run of projections. What it will come down to is this efficiency dip we've seen really the last 2 years, 7.7, 7.5 yards per target the last 2 years. He's at basically 9 yards per target the rest of his career. Was that Davis Mills? Was that I don't want to play in Houston anymore? I think it's hard to expect a bounce back to what he did in his mid-20s and what will be his age 30 season. So I'm going to probably be on the low side of that efficiency, but that does give you some hope for upside. If he's the Brandin Cooks that he was 2.5 years ago and gets 124 to 125 targets, he could be a top 30 wide receiver.
Yeah, and also not every wide receiver is in this situation, but if CeeDee Lamb gets hurt, then you could be talking about much more upside, right? I mean, you can't say that for every wide receiver.
Right.
That if this guy gets hurt, they can get so many more targets. I guess, there's an Allen Robinson comparison that I'm feeling, and I just hope it's not, he's going from the Bears. They couldn't throw the ball at all. Now he's going to the Rams, and he's the number 2 guy, but it turns out he was just not very good anymore. I hope that's not the case for Cooks.
I think the other Allen Robinson comparison is if a guy at 29 shows you that he's lost a step, you should believe him and not expect to bounce back.
Yeah, I was surprised. Brandin Cooks ranked pretty high in explosive catch rate, which is 16, which True Media defines as 16 or more yards. I think Allen Robinson was pretty bad in that metric in his last year with the Bears before he went to the Rams. That's just one metric, but shows some playmaking ability. But that's the question, Heath, is I don't know. I don't know what it is with Cooks. Did he lose a step, or was it all the things you just mentioned? I guess we'll find out with Dallas, right? Mike McCarthy, tell me if this matters to you at all, because people are going to say, well, they're not going to be like a ground and pound team. He wants to slow things down a little bit and help out his defense. Mike McCarthy was with the Packers for 13 seasons. In 6 of them, this is pretty impressive, 6 of them, Green Bay had 2 top 24 wide receivers. In 4 of those 13 seasons, they had 2 top 18 wide receivers. So the Mike McCarthy offense at least showed he can produce 2 borderline must-start wide receivers.
A little bit different quarterback there, though.
I think so, but, I feel like Rodgers, I have to go back and look. He was never a guy who threw the ball all that much.
Rodgers is a Hall of Famer. Dak Prescott's not in that category.
Right, but Prescott's putting up big numbers. That's all I'm saying. Yes, I know that, but I'm aware of that. But Prescott puts up big numbers. He's been throwing the ball so much. But all right, so that doesn't matter to you then. Okay.
No, I think, look, Brandin Cooks, again, I think will be a good value pick for fantasy managers. Will have some good weeks. I think a byproduct of last season was he wanted out of Houston. He was expected to be traded to Dallas last year, and so essentially what this is, it feels like just based on the compensation, like they waited a year to trade Brandin Cooks for Amari Cooper, and that feels like a downgrade.
Okay, so let's go to our next rankings question. It involves Adam Thielen and KJ Osborn and Jakobi Meyers. And it's ranking those 3 guys, with Adam Thielen going to the Carolina Panthers. He's going to be 33 years old. They gave him a 3-year deal with $15 million guaranteed, $14 million guaranteed. That surprised me. But he's the number 1 guy right now for Carolina. So Thielen, Jakobi Meyers, KJ Osborn. Heath, how do you rank them right now?
Low. None of these guys are in my top 45 wide receivers. They're all between 46 and 52, I think. Right now I've got it Thielen, Osborn, Meyers. But, Carolina could take a wide receiver in round 2 and change that, I guess. I'm not real excited about any of them.
Jamey, you got Thielen, Osborn, Meyers. How do you rank them?
Osborn, Meyers, Thielen. I don't really want any part of Adam Thielen. But Osborn I'm excited about, and I do think that there's a chance for Jakobi Meyers to be okay in Oakland without Darren Waller there. But Osborn's my favorite of that group.
So talk about it. You say you're excited about him. He did very well from a fantasy points perspective. I think he caught 5 touchdowns maybe in 6 games without Thielen in 2021. Thielen did not miss any games last year, but Osborn kind of came on strong late. So talk about Osborn and when you draft. We have a draft tomorrow. It's a 3-receiver PPR.
Yes.
3-receiver, 12-team PPR league. You think Osborn? Give me a round where you think he'll go.
Oh, I mean, I'll probably be one of the more aggressive people to draft him aside from Thomas Schaefer, the Vikings guy. But I would start to look for him in a 3-receiver league in the round 8 range.
Okay. And Heath, what about you? Not in your top 45.
Right. I think I've got all three of these guys right around round 10.
Okay. Do you want to expand on Osborn, Jamey, or anything?
No, I mean, you hit on it. When Thielen was missing, he was a very good player 2 years ago. I think this is part of the reason why they moved on from Thielen, aside from money situation. They feel like there's more for him. The people who I know who know people in the Vikings organization feel very confident about KJ Osborn and his development, and I think this is his time to shine. So I do think that there's a step forward that he can take, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do now with the opportunity to do it. Now, if they draft a receiver, which I think is certainly in the possibility, that would be a downgrade, and you have to factor in what he did in 2021. There was no TJ Hawkinson, so there's a bigger piece of the passing game there. But I still think that this is an opportunity for him to benefit from all the attention that Justin Jefferson will receive, that TJ Hawkinson will receive. There's clearly a rapport already established with Kirk Cousins. And again, I think whenever you see these type of moves, when there's a pushing of a guy out the door, there's usually a reason for it. And I think it's because KJ Osborn's ready to take that next step.
I know what the answer is for Heath, because he's not that high on Osborn. But Jamey, who you think you're going to draft? Well, I'll ask both of you, I guess, since it's an ADP question. Who do you think you're going to draft more, Hawkinson or Osborn, if things don't really change for the Vikings?
I will probably draft more Osborn just because of the way that I draft tight ends.
Yeah, I think I will probably draft more Hawkinson because I'm in a lot of drafts with some guys who really like KJ Osborn.
Okay.
But I think Hawkinson's probably going to go before I have him. I have him in round 6. So the answer might be neither one of them.
Okay. And last question here. I know who Heath's going to say. Jamey, I don't know if Osborn's this high, but Osborn or Brandin Cooks?
They're very close to me right now. I think I have Cooks ranked ahead, but it's in the same range.
Yeah, and I've got them. I'd agree. I think I have Cooks in round 10 with those other 3 guys. So they're all right in the same range.
All righty. All right, last rankings question for now. The Bears and the Lions running backs. For the Bears, it's Khalil Herbert and Deontay Foreman. For the Lions, it's DeAndre Swift and David Montgomery. How would you rank those 4? Heath, you can start. Give me half PPR. So Herbert, Foreman, Swift, Montgomery. How would you rank them?
Right now, I'm going to go Montgomery, Swift, Herbert, Foreman. I do think Foreman could be a real problem for Khalil Herbert. And I think either one of those guys, if they could consistently get 18 touches a game, would be first. But I kind of expect it to be a 60-40 split unless and until somebody gets hurt.
All right, sorry. Say the rankings again.
Montgomery, Swift, Herbert, Foreman.
Okay. Lions, Bears. How about you, Jamey? Half PPR.
Same for me. I had written the free agency winners and losers, and I think I led with Herbert, or maybe I led with Justin Fields, but Herbert was like the first player I wrote about aside from the lead of the story. And it was like 2 hours later they signed Deontay Foreman, and so I had to do a quick edit. I think I said it on the show. If they had gotten through the draft without taking a running back of significance, and I think Deontay Foreman has some significance, but a running back of significance that Herbert, when I first did my rankings following free agency, he was in top 15, and so now he's outside the top 24. So I think Foreman's enough of a problem, and I also don't think that they're done adding to their backfield. So I agree with Heath. It's both Lions, Montgomery ahead, and then Herbert ahead of Foreman.
I think this is also a pretty scary stat. Here's the 10 games that Montgomery, Herbert, and Justin Fields all played together. Montgomery averaged 13 carries per game. Herbert averaged 8 carries per game. Fields averaged 10.6 carries per game. And from the 2-yard line or closer, Fields had 3 carries, Montgomery 2, Herbert 1. 5-yard line or closer, Fields crushed it. 10 carries, Herbert 4, Montgomery 3. So you're talking about a 3-way split. And the goal line back last year was mostly Fields, especially inside the 5-yard line. It was a little bit closer inside the 2-yard line. But yeah, that's kind of reminds me of the Eagles a little bit.
Just before free agency started, I put together the opportunity index that I do every year. And that's mostly to show who has room for it to add somebody. But I also keep track of total running back opportunities from the year before. Lions had 546. That was the 3rd most in the NFL. That's rush attempts plus targets. The Bears were 26 with 430, so 116 more chances for the running backs in Detroit than there were in Chicago last year.
But that's catches, right?
No, that's targets plus carries.
Targets. Sorry. Yeah. So that the targets, I think, is a huge part of that. The Bears were 9th in running back carries, but yeah, they just, especially when Darnell Mooney was healthy.
And they were 9th, but they were still 60 behind the Lions.
Oh, okay. But but the targets is huge. I mean, when Darnell Mooney was healthy, Justin Fields, I think the running back target rate was about 15%. Now, I think it went up after the Mooney injury, but now you got Mooney and you got DJ Moore. It's, who leads the team in who leads the Bears in carries?
I hope it's Herbert, but it would not be surprising if it's Foreman. I mean, you just look at even the years that they're coming off of. Foreman has been, as a replacement, a pretty good replacement option for the teams that he's been replacement for.
A workhorse too. Yeah, I mean, not surprising to see him get 20 or more carries.
It could be Fields.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Two running backs. Heath, who would you bet on more carries? Let me ask you this: does the 1 year, $3 million contract, very small contract, does that tell you anything?
Well, I think it was a very similar contract to Rashad Penny got. So I think there's a chance for Foreman, but there's no guarantee, is what it tells you. I would bet on Herbert, but I wouldn't want to bet on it. I think we don't have enough information yet. I know that there were quotes from Foreman. He is not taking this job thinking that he's going to be a backup. He is expecting to compete for the lead job.
All right. We'll see how it shakes out. Are these guys ahead of Rashad Penny?
Yes. Not Foreman, but yes. The other three.
Yeah.
But Penny will fall once the draft. I mean, they're drafting a guy.
All right, everyone. We'll be right back. We're going to take a break. We got a lot more to talk about here. Winners and losers, or rankings, risers, and fallers from free agency. We'll take a look at some players that we haven't talked about. Why is Dameon Pierce on the rise in Jamey's rankings? Heath, I asked him for risers and fallers. He just said Miles Sanders. And honestly, I don't know which category Miles Sanders is going to fall in.
Lots of things besides Miles Sanders.
No, but you didn't say whether he was a riser or a faller.
Okay.
So, no, you did give us names, but I had to guess which category they were in. We'll see if I guessed right. We'll be right back on Fantasy Football Today. All right, welcome back, everyone. Hey, you ever dream about buying a nice Fantasy Football Today podcast shirt and then jumping over to get a Yellowstone whiskey glass or Top Gun Maverick hat? Well, now you can with the brand new Paramount Shop, which offers a mountain of merch from the Paramount shows and movies that you love. Shop official apparel, drinkware, and accessories inspired by over 150 fan favorite titles like Paw Patrol, Yellowstone, Top Gun, Star Trek, South Park, SpongeBob SquarePants, and all of your favorite CBS Sports podcasts like FFT, Pick 6, Cover 3. All right, we got a discount code for you. Use the code LAUNCH20 for 20% off the entire store until next Wednesday. Paramount Shop, where products are paramount. And again, the code is LAUNCH20 on the Paramount Shop. That's 20% off the entire store until next Wednesday. So this is awesome. All the great things. You can have a Kenny shirt, a Yellowstone shirt, an FFT shirt. Very cool.
They have the Adam Azer bobblehead in there yet?
Not yet. We're working on it. I didn't know that was a thing, but let's work on it.
Yes.
How's your bracket doing? I'm in 14th place in FFT. 14th.
That's awesome. Mine's
But I'm not going to do very well because I still have Gonzaga. Let's see, but the rest of my Final Four is crap. Are you guys doing well?
Nope.
No.
No. Schaefer, are you in it? Schaefer, are you in the bracket? Are you in the?
Yeah, I'm like 500 or 300. I'm not doing well. Yeah, 568. Azer's killing it. He's in 14th place right now.
Yeah, there you go. I'm like 5th best among the Gonzaga picks, but I think probably 5th is probably the best I can do, would be my guess. I'm not eligible to win entry into the podcast thing, so don't worry. All right, I want to thank everybody for joining that. We had over 2,000 people in it. Good stuff. Let's get our rankings movers. All right, look at some of the risers. First, we'll do Jamey's risers here. You got Aaron Rodgers, assuming he's going to the Jets, and Jordan Love as risers. Who, Jamey, do you like better, Aaron Rodgers or Jordan Love?
Well, Rodgers. I mean, the hope would be is that he is rejuvenated by the new team that he's with, that he benefits with, going from not necessarily a more experienced receiving core, but I do think that Garrett Wilson is the best receiver he will have played with over the last 2 seasons, better than Christian Watson, for example. And hopefully Elijah Moore can bounce back. Still has Alan Lazard with him, Randall Cobb, Donald Driver, Jordy Nelson, everybody that's ever played with in Green Bay that he wants to go with him. But, Rodgers was somebody that if he stayed in Green Bay, I would not have any interest in drafting. Now I have some interest in taking him as a late number 1 quarterback with a late round pick. Low-end number 1 quarterback with a late round pick.
I'm sorry, Heath, did you want to get in there? It looked like you were going to say something. You stopped. You froze me.
Yeah. I moved him up, I think, 2 spots. I had him behind Goff, and I had him behind Russell Wilson, and I moved him up ahead of those 2.
I see, Heath, you have Daniel Jones as a riser. Jones or Rodgers?
I would take Jones over Rodgers with the hope that they're still going to go get him another wide receiver, hopefully in the draft, and with what he can do with his legs, that he could be a top 12 quarterback this year.
The group that I struggle with is Rodgers, Jones, Kyler right now, just because of the uncertainty, and Cousins. That group. So I must have moved them between. I settled on 2 at 11. If he's healthy, I think he should be drafted as a top 12 guy. And then it's that group of 4 or 5 quarterbacks that just I'm sure I'll change 13 times.
So instead of focusing on the order of that group of Rodgers, Cousins, Jones, Kyler, was there someone else in there? That was it.
Maybe Russell Wilson. You want to put him there?
Yeah. I mean, how do you approach that group? Do you take 2 of them? Are they your second quarterback with, how do you approach that group on draft day?
Kyler, you 1,000% have to take a second quarterback with for now. But I think in terms of that group, that's just I'm the last fantasy manager to take a quarterback, and that's the one that I like the best in that tier. So whenever you get to that point in the draft, I don't think it's a bad idea to take 2 because there's clearly flaws with them. Can Daniel Jones do it again? Is Cousins going to still be the same, fantasy quarterback on a low end scale? Does he have another notch to get to? Does Rodgers still have anything left? And I think it's not a bad idea if you're going to go that route with some of those veteran guys. Then you take a shot on, Trey Lance if he's the starter there, a rookie, who may have a chance to blow up. C.J. Stroud, Bryce Young, wherever those guys end up. Maybe you're so inclined to take 2 in that group because Daniel Jones still has some upside. So there's a good case to be made to take 2 quarterbacks for sure.
Okay, Jordan Love. Heath, that's a riser for Jamey. Is he a riser for you? I mean, he's obviously a riser.
He was not in my top 32, and he is my top 32 now, so he is a riser. He's not somebody, I think he's a backup for me in a 2 quarterback league. I've got pretty low expectations. They have not been a hyper-aggressive passing offense the last 2 years. I don't think they're going to be at least the first half of Love's first campaign as a starter. So I would expect a pretty conservative game plan, at least early on. And maybe in a 1 quarterback league, if he gets high, he's somebody you end up picking up off the waiver wire.
Okay. Running back risers for Jamey are Tony Pollard. We spent a lot of time talking about Tony Pollard last week, but you can tell us where you have him. Tony Pollard, Dameon Pierce, David Montgomery, and Miles Sanders. Real quick on Pollard, where'd you end up on with Pollard in your rankings at running back?
7th, borderline first round pick. So again, the guys I struggle with him are Jacobs, Henry, Chubb, that group. So I think, again, we've talked about this a lot, that if Tony Pollard does not get significant competition and is the guy in a Dallas offense that's trending in a direction that wants to run the ball more, I think there's just the upside to be a top 5 guy. So he showed that last year in the 2 games that Ezekiel Elliott missed. I think we see the upside of what this offense is as a runner. They bring back Tyron Smith. Just everything is coming up roses for Tony Pollard right now.
Yeah, I think Pollard and Pierce both, for me, top 10 running backs, definitely top 12 guys, both guys that I'm going to be a little bit nervous until we get through the NFL draft and we see if their team, because I think both teams are probably going to draft a running back, but hopefully neither team does so before day 3. I think they both be top 10 running backs this year.
Dameon Pierce as well. Okay, yeah. So let's talk about that. Why was Dameon Pierce a winner for you, Jamey?
Offensive line help. I think you see the direction that they're going to go. They're going to, add to their quarterback group, which I think will help this offense. And you don't like them losing pieces in their passing game, but I don't know if Brandin Cooks was ever in their future plans, so I don't know how much you had to factor that in. But you get Shaq Mason to pay Laramie Tunsil to just continue to add pieces to a group that I think is one of the better units in the NFL, underrated wise for sure. I like this offense. I just think that Dameon Pierce, as Heath said, we'll see what happens coming out of the NFL draft. But for me, I was probably too low on him to begin with, because I had him closer to 20 than I did to 12, and he jumped about like 8 guys. So he's just outside my top 12, but he's right there with Travis Etienne, Najee Harris. I like him better at this point than Joe Mixon and Dalvin Cook, for example. So I know we gave Thomas a hard time in one of our earlier drafts, so I apologize, Thomas. You made an appropriate draft pick to take him in the 3rd round.
But why would you take him over Dalvin Cook? Why would you take Dameon Pierce over Dalvin Cook?
I don't feel like the Vikings trust Dalvin Cook at this point, and it's an age thing as well. He's just at that point where I think you got to fear, the breakdowns coming. Joe Mixon's situation is obviously pretty volatile right now as well. So I think, just looking at what he did last year, again, you got to be a little concerned about pedigree based on NFL draft and the experience that we've seen with, guys that aren't day 1 or day 2 picks. But I still think there's an opportunity here for Dameon Pierce to be the lead back for at least this season and hopefully build off a strong rookie campaign.
Yeah, Mixon, Cook, Kamara, if I thought he was going to play 17 games, and Aaron Jones, all 4 guys who would project right in that same range with Dameon Pierce, but I'd rather have Dameon Pierce because he's not 28 years old.
I mean, it's funny. He's not 28 years old, but he got hurt last year. Like these young guys get hurt too. Missed a lot of time last year. And is he going to?
Dalvin got hurt early in his career.
I know. That's what I'm saying. Is what is the age argument, that they're more likely to get hurt or that they're more likely to decline?
Yes,
decline.
Because I don't really buy the injury argument with that, because running backs get hurt at all ages, all the time. I'm not sure a 28-year-old running back is more likely to get hurt than a 24-year-old running back. In fact, I would guess there's no evidence of that. But that is total speculation. But I'm just thinking, think about all the running backs who got hurt early in their career. It happens all the time, Yes.
And for me, it's more decline.
Okay, decline. David Montgomery, a riser, and Miles Sanders, a riser for Jamey. Heath, do you agree with those takes?
Yes, absolutely. Miles Sanders is a guy who I think could be a top 15 running back. We saw how effective this running game was even after Christian McCaffrey left last year. They went and prioritized him. They have his old running back coach, the guy who, when he was his running back coach, they actually threw it to him 50 times a year. So I think that there's a chance Miles Sanders could be right on the heels of Dameon Pierce.
Would it make you guys nervous to draft Sanders on Carolina, Pierce with Houston, with rookie quarterbacks? Does that factor in at all?
I mean, yes, for sure. You got to be concerned about, inefficient offenses. I mean, look what happened to Najee last year, for example. Just going from an experienced guy like Ben Roethlisberger to, the combination of Trubisky and Pickett, if you just want to go from a recent standpoint. But I think also you look at what the workloads should be, and Dameon Pierce was able to have a pretty successful season with a hefty workload on a bad team. I would assume Miles Sanders is going to have a hefty workload on a bad team. We'll see how Carolina stacks up in that division, based on how quickly that quarterback, I hope it's not Andy Dalton for a significant stretch, but however that quarterback, picks up things quickly. So, I agree with Heath. I get a little bit concerned more so with Sanders at his age going to the team that he's going to. He feels like somebody that just might be one of those guys getting paid, switching teams, and struggling.
Okay. All right, let's talk about your wide receiver risers here. KJ Osborn, you talked about, Kadarius Toney, Michael Thomas, and Nico Collins.
Yeah, Thomas is kind of cringeworthy for me, but I think just the fact that he stayed in New Orleans and they get a quarterback upgrade is. I had like zero interest in him. Now I'll take him as a late number 3 receiver.
Okay, well, so how would you rank Toney, Michael Thomas, Nico Collins?
Thomas, Toney, Osborn, Collins.
That sounds right. Yeah. But again, a lot of apprehension about this entire group.
Same.
I'm trying to look. I wish I had looked this up. I'm sorry I didn't, but I feel like Nico Collins was okay without Brandin Cooks last year. Don't remember.
I think okay.
He was okay with Cook too.
Yeah, okay is a really good way to put it.
Yeah, he didn't really have any good games. He had one game with more than 65 yards, Nico Collins. It's kind of like, well, not anymore Terrace Marshall, but these guys that we wanted opportunities for, they didn't really do all that much to get excited about. But okay.
He had 36 targets in his last 4 games, 9 targets a game. Did not top 50 yards in any of those games.
Yeah. Not good. And then Darren Waller as a riser for Jamey. So I was on FFT and 5 yesterday with Chris. It aired this morning. Forget what I said about Deontay Foreman. I think I don't feel that way anymore. But Darren Waller, my opinion, tell me if you agree with this take. Going to the Giants from the Garoppolo-led Raiders gives Waller both a higher ceiling and a lower floor. Makes him a much more volatile receiver, many more possible outcomes with Daniel Jones rather than Garoppolo. Agree or disagree?
I think that's fair.
Not just with Jones versus Garoppolo, but without Devontae Adams. Like, he has a chance on the Giants if everything went right to get 140 targets. Yeah. Probably wasn't happening on the Raiders.
I think if he stays healthy, he's going to have has the potential for a similar year to what we saw in 2020.
That was an 1,100-yard season, right?
He averaged 17 PPR points per game. Yeah,
that's pretty damn good. So Hockenson or Waller?
Hockenson for now, but again, I think you lean towards youth in this case. You got to be a little concerned about Waller's injuries the last 2 years. How much of it was, did he not want to risk 2 years ago the contract situation? Last year, I'm sure clearly he wanted to get back on the field. It doesn't strike me as that type of guy, but you never know. I just think that, going to a new team that's clearly going to feature him and the opportunity to, learn from Brian Daboll and Mike Kafka, it's pretty enticing, So for what you said, I think is a pretty good telling point for when you look at this tight end group, because you know what you're getting from Kelsey. You should know what you're getting from Andrews and probably Hockenson, just based on the small sample size from a year ago. For me, those are my top 3 tight ends. 4, 5, 6, it's kind of like, okay, Dallas Goedert's in a crowded, receiving situation. 5 for me is Waller, just based on upside. 6 is Pitts, and 7 is Kittle. I think those guys you can certainly debate, where they should be ranked, but there's upside for all of them in some way, shape, or form. And if Waller stays healthy, I think he could be a top 3 guy.
Cool. Okay, Heath, I think your risers are Daniel Jones, Miles Sanders, and Samaje Perine.
Those are all correct, and we've already talked about 2 of them, so that's even better.
That is even better. Let's talk about Samaje Perine then. And I don't know why Heath has to bring up Daniel Jones on every show. It's just ridiculous at this point. But Samaje Perine, how are you looking at him right now with the Broncos?
I think he has an excellent chance to be the Week 1 starter for the Broncos, and underrated chance to be the Week 9 starter for the Broncos. We just don't really know. There's a lot of smoke in different directions around the Javonte Williams situation. There's been reports that he could be ready for Week 1. There's been reports that he'll start on IR, and they don't know that he'll be there ready all season. So there's a big opportunity in an offense that has featured the running back in the passing game, and we just saw Perine look really, really good in the passing game in Cincinnati.
Okay, so we're drafting tomorrow. It's a PPR league. Deontay Foreman or Samaje Perine?
Perine.
Same.
DeAndre Swift or Samaje Perine?
Tomorrow, Swift, but 2 months from now, could be Perine.
I have Swift 2 spots ahead of Perine.
All right, people, we've got more to talk about, but we need your help right now. We want to win the award this time. We want to win the best sports podcast. Actually, the category is fantasy sports and gambling. It's on sportspodcastgroup.com. All right. It's fantasy and sports betting. I'm sorry. Fantasy and sports betting is the category. Please vote for us. You have to create an account I did it. It took less than a minute, real simple stuff. And then you go and you get to the sports, you get to the fantasy and sports betting category, and you vote for fantasy football today. That's all you need to do. I'll put links in the episode description, both in an Apple Podcast, wherever you listen, and on YouTube as well. By the way, you can watch us always, youtube.com/fantasyfootball today. We live stream all of our shows. You can see them on demand. Coming up this week, we have our mock draft review on Wednesday. I've got Samantha Praviti joining us on Thursday to give maybe some free agency thoughts, or if that topic is stale at that point, we'll just ask her for some of her favorite players for 2023. We'll hear what she has to say. We're going to try to get some guests on during the month of late March and into April, and of course talk NFL draft as well. We'll take a quick break here. When we come back, we will look at the fallers in the rankings post free agency, or at least most of free agency. We'll be right back on Fantasy Football Today. All right, let's talk about the fallers here. And Heath, I don't want to take all of yours as we look at Jamey. So you go first here. Your fallers, I think, are DeAndre Swift, JuJu Smith-Schuster, and Elijah Moore.
Well, we were close. JuJu was actually a riser. But yes, DeAndre Swift and Elijah Moore. And Elijah Moore is probably more of a dynasty thing, just because I don't know how anybody had gotten too excited about him for redraft purposes yet. But as much as we've seen Aaron Rodgers struggle to connect with young wide receivers, it's hard for me to believe after the Jets sign Allen Lazard that he's going to connect with two of them in New York. I think the best case for Elijah Moore is now that he ends up somewhere other than on the Jets.
I push back on the notion that he struggles to connect with young wide receivers.
Okay.
They barely ever gave him young wide receivers. They haven't drafted one in the first round in like 20 years. And I think if you look
Elijah Moore was not a first round pick.
Okay, but I'm just talking about the Packers here.
Right.
If you look at what Christian Watson did in the second half of the year, he was a top 10 wide receiver. They connected pretty well.
I think Elijah Moore had a 6-week stretch his rookie year as a top 10
He had
wide receiver.
I think the fifth most green zone targets in the NFL in the last 8 games. 1.5 of which he was basically either not playing or playing hurt. I think he connected pretty well with Christian Watson. And I'm saying, even if you disagree with that, there haven't been that many rookie wide receivers for him to connect with.
Okay. He's not a rookie though, Elijah Moore. He's in his third year. I mean, this is, the hope would be is that this crappy quarterback situation that the Jets had last season. Thank God Garrett Wilson put up the numbers he did without Zach Wilson. But did you really expect, Joe Flacco in the limited time that he played, and Zach Wilson and Mike White and those guys to, cater to 2 guys, let alone 3 with Corey Davis? So I don't think Elijah Moore, I don't disagree with Heath that he's not somebody that you should be excited about. But the potential additions of Allen Lazard and Randall Cobb make it tough from a target perspective to say Elijah Moore can ascend from that group to the point where you're excited about him once again.
And with all that said, is Garrett Wilson a riser or a faller? Because, months ago, before, or not, I guess maybe like a month ago, after the season ended, before we really thought Rodgers was going to the Jets, it was always a possibility. He was a 3rd round pick, even early 3rd round for some people, but gets Rodgers in theory, but also gets Lazard, maybe Cobb. So is Garrett Wilson a riser or a faller?
I didn't move him, but he's closer to a faller than a riser for me. I feel a little bit more nervous than I feel like I shouldn't. We went into this not knowing who his quarterback was going to be, and now we think we know who his quarterback's going to be, and I still feel a little bit nervous.
Same.
Yeah. The argument is just for him is just that he's probably so much better than all those other guys.
Yeah.
And the cream will rise.
I mean, you would hope, and again, Rodgers, when he's had a guy, he's really featured that guy, and this should be that guy. Lazard is not that guy. Cobb is clearly at this point in his career not that guy, and Elijah Moore is not that guy.
I give this stat. I've been waiting for Rodgers to sign so I can give this, or get traded so I can give this damn stat. But what I love about a number 1 receiver for Aaron Rodgers is the red zone, green zone peppering of targets. From 2012 to 2021. Okay, we'll talk about 2022 in a minute. But 2012 to 2021, that's 10 seasons. A Green Bay wide receiver ranked top 11 in red zone targets every single season. and top 5 in red zone targets in 5 of those 10 seasons. Similar trends in the green zone. I won't bog you down in numbers, but he locks on to guys. And he did that with Allen Lazard weeks 2 through 9. Lazard was 5th in red zone targets and 6th in green zone targets. Lazard didn't play in week 1, and weeks 1 through 9, Christian Watson barely played. Christian Watson starts playing week 10, basically. Week 10 through 18, he was 5th in red zone targets. He was 2nd in green zone targets in the NFL. It is something that happens every year with Aaron Rodgers. He picks one guy, and he throws to him over and over again in the red zone and the green zone. Will that happen again this year?
Good trait.
Yeah. I'm going to be so mad if it doesn't happen this year because it's one of my favorite stats. Let's just hope it's Garrett Wilson, right? Okay, Heath, JuJu's a riser, huh?
Yeah, I think he moves into a place where he probably just takes over the 22% target share that Jakobi Meyers left behind. And he'll be a number 3 wide receiver in a pretty decent situation. I think he's the clear number 1 target for the Patriots.
But is he better than he was last year with the Chiefs?
I think on a per game basis, he might be close. Because last year was kind of a weird year. He had, a 6-week stretch where he was a number 2 wide receiver. And then before that and after that, he had some weeks where he wasn't really worth anything. There will be ups and downs, but I think overall he's probably somewhere between wide receiver 30 and 36.
Okay. Jamey's fallers. Oh, sorry.
No, I wasn't sure going into free agency, like as cold as the market had been on him for 2 years in a row. I thought he might go into a worse situation than this.
I don't think this is a better situation, though.
But he's a riser for you, Heath, because you thought it could have been worse, basically.
Yeah.
All right. Jamey's fallers, DeAndre Swift, he had him as well. Alvin Kamara and Jamaal Williams. So talk about that, Jamey. Kamara and Williams are losers, fallers.
Well, I mean, let's assume Kamara does not get suspended, which seems unlikely at this point, but I don't think he's going from 2 touchdowns to 10 touchdowns with Jamaal Williams on the field. So his rushing touchdowns are going to clearly suffer once again, as long as Taysom Hill's still there as well. So, Jamaal Williams at this point, not that he's a better player from a career standpoint than Mark Ingram, but I think a 31-year-old Mark Ingram compared to Jamaal Williams at this phase of his career, Williams is probably in a little bit better standing. So a guy that's going to take some work away, not just in the ground game, but this is still a guy that for his tenure with the Packers averaged 30 receptions a season and could probably take some work in the passing game as well if Kamara's not producing across the board. So, obviously Jamaal Williams loses going from a place where he could have scored multiple touchdowns double-digit touchdowns to, a place where we'll probably be lucky to get 6 or 7. And so I think both these guys lose with the addition of Jamaal Williams in New Orleans.
I was actually a little more excited about Jamaal Williams just because I did think that Kamara is probably going to get suspended. And for that,
well, there's a difference. That's a totally different conversation.
Right.
I agree with you from that standpoint. If there is a suspension, then Jamaal Williams gets a benefit of however many games that is. But if it's 2-game suspension, I don't know how much that's going to really boost Jamaal Williams' value.
I don't want to have to draft Jamaal Williams, but you have to draft.
You dislike him.
Yeah, you have to draft. Well, it seems like he's a really good dude. The teammates love him. I like that about him.
His press conference was awesome.
Oh, I didn't see it.
He wore a Pokemon hat. He talked about the character he's wearing. He said that he has different kind of laughs. He said there's an evil laugh, but I could be happy. There's a happy laugh. I could be evil. It's very fun.
Okay, you brought up Pokemon. I'm going to confirm something. Hold on. Yeah. So Blake Martinez was the Giants. He was a Packers linebacker, then the Giants, then he went to the Raiders, and then I think, right? And then he abruptly retired.
Mm-hmm.
He made, according to the New York Post, $5 million in 7 months selling Pokemon cards. So maybe we know why he retired. He is just rolling in the dough, selling Pokemon cards. Good for Blake Martinez. All right, let's see. More fallers here for Jamey. We'll go to the wide receivers. Chris Godwin, Mike Evans. Yeah, we talked about that for sure. Heath and Jamey, do you guys have either Evans or Godwin in your top 24?
I do not.
Godwin and PPR, yes.
Jakobi Meyers is a rankings faller for Jamey. And you stuck that way after the Waller trade?
Yep.
Okay. And Josh Palmer, I know you were excited about an opportunity for him with Keenan Allen potentially getting released or something that didn't happen. So where's Palmer?
Oh, double-digit round guy. Late round flyer.
Wide receiver 56.
And tight end fallers for Jamey are Cole Kmet and Mike Gesicki. We did not talk about Mike Gesicki. So if you're in a super deep league and you have to pick a Patriots tight end, which one are you going for?
Henry.
Yeah, I'll go. Henry was the roller coaster because I had just moved him up from looking at his target share last year when Jonnu Smith didn't play, and then Mike Gesicki ends and he's back outside the top 20.
Yeah, I really struggle with this Patriots offense because I don't know like how much Bill O'Brien is going to make this passing game like that much better. So I don't really love JuJu there. I don't really love Mike. I hate Mike Gesicki there, to be honest with you. You know, the saving grace would be that Bill O'Brien recruited him to Penn State. So, you know, there's that connection. But is Tyquan Thornton going to get a bigger opportunity? Devontae Parker still being there. You know, how much are they just going to be still a run first team? You know, so is JuJu even better than Jakobi Meyers at this point? You know, and will he just assume, as Heath said, that target share and that opportunity? I still feel like I'm hands off the Patriots, aside from Roger Stevenson.
Now, he did recruit Gesicki there. Did he end up coaching him? I think, did he leave? I feel like he left.
Sure. Probably not.
Coach, you recruited him, then left, and then brought him in free agency 10 years later, huh?
I think that's what happened, actually. I'll try to double
Really funny if he left again now.
All right, that's pretty much it for our risers and falls. You know, for Kmet, I definitely found myself interested in it because you want Justin Fields to take that big leap. And I was drafting Mooney in some drafts. I was drafting Kmet. I don't know. Do we have to eliminate Kmet from that discussion? Is he still a borderline top 12 guy, even with DJ?
I don't think you eliminate it, but for me, he was a top 12 guy. And at this point, I'd rather have Okonkwo, you know, with the chance of what he can become in Tennessee. And I'd rather have Dawson Knox right now for what the Bills receiving core looks like. They cut Dave's guy, Isaiah McKenzie, you know, so they did just actually sign a receiver while we were doing the show, Trent Sherfield from the Dolphins, but that's not a big, you know, boost. So for me, Kmet falls into that touchdown or bust group, which is basically what he was a year ago. And so looking at the addition of DJ Moore and just comparing him to, you know, those other two guys, for example, I dropped him from, I think, 11th to 15th. Now he'll fall depending on, you know, right now I have Dalton Schultz ranked ahead of him. He hasn't signed yet. So we'll see what happens there. But, and yeah, and the addition of Robert Tonyan, you know, as well. So that was a big part of it too. You know, there's another guy there to just take away some touchdown opportunities.
Okay, so by the way, Mike Gesicki did not play for Bill O'Brien. He did get recruited, and then Bill O'Brien said, "See you later, going to the Houston Texans." I think that's about it, guys. Anything to add here? I have two questions. If Gardner Minshew, well, I'm just going to tell you right now, he's the quarterback for 17 games for the Colts. Would you rather have Gardner Minshew or Jordan Love?
Minshew.
Love.
Okay, and did you move Christian Watson at all in your rankings?
No.
I think he went down a couple of spots, but he's still in the top 20.
Okay. Well, who are you rooting for in the NCAA tournament going forward now? Who's your team?
My hometown team, the Owls.
Yeah, FAU.
Oh, all right. Well,
South Florida's team.
Remove the A from that, and that's how I feel about your response.
South Florida's team is the Owls.
Yep. South Florida's team, okay. Well, it's going to be tough for Miami against Houston, but you know what? I'm good. Back-to-back Sweet 16s, very, very cool. Heath replaced his Kansas banner, his KU banner in the back with a Chiefs Super Bowl championship banner. That's cool.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. You know who you are.
Oh, yeah. He got hooked up a little bit with that. That's good stuff, too.
Yeah.
All right, folks, have a good day. We'll talk to you on Wednesday with a mock draft recap. And then Samantha Praviti joins us on Thursday. For Heath and Jamey and Schaefer, I'm Adam. See ya.